Welcome back, everybody, to the next episode of the Bucket Bros.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
Bobby Marcico, and I got my co-host here, Ronnie the Ron Dog West,
What's up?
and we
Yes.
are still here, kind of having fun.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Sorry for such a delay from the last episode until now. I had a really long layover in Kalispell, but I'm finally home and watching some more basketball.
Well-deserved rest and recuperation. I think it's always good to get out and re-energize. And a perfect time too, right before the start of the season. So I'm excited. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. We're going to go over some current events and our fast break news. I've got
We're going to mention
a
Derrick Rose twice in the episode.
maybe. We'll see. Maybe 3 times. Check it out. I go to the Windy City Bulls FanFest, which is a lot of fun with my son. You got to check that out. And then we're going to talk about the Karl-Anthony Towns trade to the Knicks. Pretty big news. Anything else you think you want to mention, Bobby? You got any surprise questions for me later?
Oh, I kind of spoiled that one already, but no, I say just stay tuned, folks. We're about to make your brains explode with NBA knowledge.
All right, let's get into it. Here we go. All right, this is fast break news. We are going to break down some of the current events that's going on in the world of the NBA. There's been a lot. I don't know, Bobby. I'll let you start off. What has been one of the biggest things since we've been off? I think for a few weeks. What has been one of the biggest stories that's jumped out at you?
I would probably have to jump into Derrick Rose retirement. I know, big surprise there, but obviously iconic player out of Chicago, had a very strange career arc. One of the many what could have beens rather, and yeah, I mean he was able to stay iconic. I feel like throughout his NBA career, even though his production started to slip over time for obvious reasons. Just a very electric player, just talent out the wazoo. Perhaps one of the most athletic guys that the NBA has ever seen, and yeah, I mean, I certainly honored the decision. You got to respect the guy who's able to know when to hold him and know when to fold him, and I mean, it certainly doesn't feel wrong. I mean, there's no like big surprise there, but
Yep.
yeah, that was a very very important player to the, I would say, like the 2010s of the NBA,
Yep.
and yeah, sad to see it, another one dropping, another passing of the torch, if you will.
It's sad because we're getting older. I think that's the only thing. These guys have great careers. Rose played 17 years. I remember watching him at Memphis with Calipari, and just kind of, like you said, just dynamic. And that's kind of the thing that we've, at least that I've seen. I think I've sent you plenty of stuff online. Um, Everybody talks about prime Derrick Rose and the fact that there was no one that wanted to face prime Derrick Rose when he was healthy and was just electric those first few years. Like, he couldn't be stopped, and that's why he was the youngest MVP ever at 22. And to me, it's like you said, it is sad to see, just because he, at least me being a Wolves fan, like his career high was with the Wolves when he put up 50. So yeah, it to me there's so much that he gave the sport, but yeah, there's so much that he could have had, which is what we say was unfortunately too many, that get that injury bug and it hits them and then it kind of spirals into a couple different things. So yeah, he was so fun to watch even with those injuries. I think I've got here a 3-time All-Star, was the rookie of the year in the 08-09 season, the MVP in the 10-11 year. 7 season with Chicago, 4 with the Knicks, 2 with Detroit, 2 with Minnesota, 1 with Memphis, 1 with Cleveland. and yeah, just had an unbelievable, stellar career. I like always throwing this in 167 million in career earnings. And now it looks like he's going to be a motivation. I can't speak. A motivational speaker.
Maybe you shouldn't be a motivational speaker.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't want to be if I can't say it. Going to be a motivational speaker for kids. I think kind of telling his story of being resilient, getting back up, never giving up. I think is something that I think a lot of kids can take something from and use in their own life.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you call it his prime, just because I don't know that we ever truly got to see his prime.
Yeah,
It was hard and fast right from the get go. He was a one and done player. You know, you mentioned 3 All-Stars, an MVP, and a Rookie of the Year. Those accounted for his first 4 seasons in the NBA. You know, the fourth of which was certainly shortened by injuries. Before the big one that sort of broke the camel's back in the playoffs. We don't need to rehash that story, certainly, but yeah, it's wild. It's wild what he accomplished in such a short amount of time, and it's wild what he left behind.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We never got to see a prime Rose, just because those injuries happened so early. It's funny. As soon as you said it, I kind of mirrored in my head kind of an RG3 kind of. And granted, his career post injury was obviously way better than RG3's, but just kind of that what could have been, just thought process, just because of playing too physical and just being that, like, just he played so aggressive that it unfortunately it cost him. We loved watching it just because it was just like, if you're a WWE wrestler, like Cena's like that. Reckless aggression, I think, is what he brought to the basketball court, that because of his stature as well, he kind of had that Allen Iverson. He had some of that flair, but just the fact that he wanted to run you down and dunk on you at 6 foot was just like, you wanted to emulate him and be like him, because he was the closest thing you had to somebody that was your size for most of us small guys. So I think that's another reason why so many people gravitated towards him.
Yeah. I remember early in his career. It was also early in Jalen Rose's broadcasting career when he said "speed kills," which I used to think was a cool phrase, but it definitely took a different meaning after that, because you start to realize that, you know, the likes of, you know, like him, John Wall, you know, players of that caliber who can just completely light a season up, can also fall really hard. You know, with that, I will say a couple other players who recently retired who had kind of similar career arcs in a way. Gordon Hayward. I mean, maybe not to such an elite level, and maybe not such an early dive, but yeah, Gordon Hayward. Perhaps
his the most brutal way to start a season, like that opening game, I think was.
Especially with the expectations going into that season, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sorry, I interrupted. Yes.
No. I mean, I'm not too upset about that in terms of for Boston fans, because, you know, all seem to work out with what they were building from that moment until now. But yeah, and then unfortunately Gordon Hayward, you know, didn't really have as much as goodbye tour, farewell tour, rather, as other players. He was highly criticized for his last minutes on the court, which, I don't know, perhaps that was just enough for him. I mean, kudos to the guy. He at least he signed the big contract before he got the big injury, and, you know, it's not like he came back a bad player. I would have liked to see him on a contending team a little earlier than what was attempted with his final stint here with OKC. But yeah, I mean, overall, just a high IQ player, fun guy to watch. You know, not too much in his game that was a deficiency, and so yeah. I mean, another crazy one, and then to top off the list, Otto Porter Jr., who's always a fun name to throw around. I mean, he certainly got a ring. It's sort of what could have been when he was, speaking of John Wall teammates, and what could have been when he was a Wizard. He's yet another player who passed through the Bulls before, reaching the highest point of his career with that championship with Golden State thereafter. So go Bulls! Just always seeming to prime people for these days anyway, for the better parts of their career. But yeah, another great name. That sad to see them walk away, but yeah, love what they love what they gave us on the court for the time that they were playing.
And a name that you said, well, like you said, a name that we will say that we are sad to see go, unfortunately, is Dikembe Mutombo, passed away the last few weeks. He's one of those that I think, depending on when you started watching basketball, he was just someone that was so fun to watch just because of his energy, his kind of personality, his exuberance on the court. Even post playing 10, 15 years after maybe not that long, 5-10 years after playing and doing his Geico commercial and all of that, I think is he's so iconic, the iconic finger wag. For me, it's funny just because I found out my sister was going to be born. My parents told me my mom was pregnant, and then we went to the Timberwolves game and saw the Nuggets play and saw Mutombo. So, and that was, I think we were fairly close, like maybe 10 rows out. So I got to see him kind of up close, which was cool. And yeah, one of those moments that's kind of etched in my head just because of it's a memorable few hours. And also, it's funny too, my sister-in-law actually met him and took a picture with him. I think it was May of 22, I think is what I had on the date of the photo. So he's definitely been a name that people see out of Georgetown, 8-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, was the 4th overall pick by the Nuggets in 1991. 5 seasons with the Nuggets, 5 seasons with the Hawks, 5 with the Rockets, 2 with the Sixers, 1 with the Knicks, 1 with the Nets. I was looking at his career highs, 39 points. The one that stood out for me was 31 rebounds was his career high. So that is unbelievable. 10 triple doubles. And like I mentioned, he had 143.
Many of them were with blocks, probably all of them.
Yeah, I didn't break that down. I should have broke that down. And he had 143 million in career earnings. So good for him. Obviously, I'm sure he made plenty more in endorsements, just like D Rose did with Adidas. I'm sure he made plenty. But yes, I just want to make sure that we give him a shout out and all the respect because he was a very fun player to watch. One thing I know, he at least went to the finals once with the Nuggets. Sixers. He went with the Sixers. He went against with the Nuggets against the Bulls. I know that. Like so maybe 2-time finalist, but never. I don't believe he won a ring with any of those teams.
I'm going to correct you on that one. I don't think the Nuggets made it to the finals during that era to ever face the Bulls. You may be confusing either the Blazers, the Suns, the Lakers. Those were the finalists in the early 90s that faced the Bulls.
So I was wrong on that one. He only went to the finals with the Sixers. Either way.
Yeah, that was the year the Sixers thought they had a great chance against the Lakers because he won Defensive Player of the Year. I believe that was his was that his 4th one? I think that was his 4th one. And so the Sixers thought that he had a chance one-on-one against Shaq, and that proved to be very, very wrong. But that said, you can't throw shade at all-time leading 4 Defensive Player of the Year winner. And it's certainly he continued his legacy off the court. He's known for being one of those people who's just very close to altruistic. Brought a lot to the development of the game in Africa with the NBA, and just sounds like overall very, very pleasant human, very good person to be around. Sad that he had to go at such a young age, 58 years old, from brain cancer. Yeah, no, he definitely did a lot for the sport. Iconic in a lot of different ways. So that's certainly a
Yes,
sad
indeed.
one to see go. And yeah,
Frozen. More edits.
my thoughts out to his family, friends, anybody close to him.
You were frozen there, pal. I'm sure that was a great dedication.
It was very heartfelt. You didn't you didn't see the tears that were running down my face because it was frozen, but there was real tears.
No, he was definitely someone who was fun to watch, and I think, like you said, it's a fun name to say. He had just kind of iconic things that he would do, and seemed like he was always a happy person, which I think kind of exuded out in his personality. So yes, very sad to see him go at such a young age. So
I do wonder where would his statue be if one NBA team was to build a statue of Dikembe Mutombo, which squad would it be? Because he won Defensive
that's
Player
a
of the Year
great question.
with three different teams.
Yeah.
I think it certainly wouldn't be the Sixers because I think he had a season and a half with them basically. But
Yeah, that's at least that's what I had wrote down. To me, it's funny because it's yeah. I was like, I always think of him as a Rocket, but it's like I forgot he was a Hawk. So I probably saw plenty of red and just assumed that when I saw him in a Hawk jersey, it was when he was with the Rockets.
Yeah, that's where he ended his career as Yao Ming's backup, essentially. But yeah, you're thinking of his golden years with the Hawks.
Okay, yeah, because it had like he finished his with the Knicks and the Nets the last 2 years, so he had a stint in the East Coast. Probably never made the floor. I would assume was more of like a Udonis Haslem type role with probably both of those teams. So, but yeah, I remember my dad was always a big fan of John Thompson in Georgetown and watching him there a little bit after Patrick Ewing. And I feel like I'm probably very wrong. I want to say there was an overlap with Iverson by maybe a year, like not much. And so I think just that Georgetown team was pretty fun to watch within those few years. So actually, I'm probably very wrong. Might be some other guard that I'm thinking of. Just like I thought, I have a picture of my head of him at the finals, like walking away, but it's probably like Irv Johnson or somebody like that. So, in any case, any other fast break news, Bobby? We got any? We're gonna do new faces in new places. You want to quiz me? I feel like I'm the Charles Barkley of this show, so I have no idea where some guys are. So if you want to quiz me on where these old faces in new places are, is what I should have said.
All right, this is one I feel like you should get. We've certainly talked about it. Tobias Harris. Who does Tobias Harris now play for?
Now play for?
Yeah,
I
or soon
assumed
to
he
be.
was. I thought he was still with the Sixers. So, in a new place, I would in
The
my head
Sixers
I want
couldn't
to.
sign him. Well, I mean, I suppose they
I'm
could
gonna
sign him, but
say
they didn't sign him because they didn't want to give him probably what this other team was willing to give him. One of the only other teams with a lot of cap room in the season
I
who
wasn't the
just weren't too
Nets.
big.
The
It is the
Nets is my
Pistons, the
guess.
Detroit Pistons.
Pistons. Oh, okay, that's right. We did. I feel like we talked about it. Yeah, I totally forgot. That's my
Yeah, that was
memory.
when I said the Pistons are an easy over this year for their over under win total.
Yeah, we got to come back to that. We're going to be coming back to all of that
I look
stuff.
forward to that. I look
We'll
forward
be
to it.
checking our receipts in about 10 months time, 10, 11.
All right, I've got another good one for you.
Fire away.
Where in the world is Larry Nance Jr.?
Oh god. Portland.
I would say that's a team that is probably going to do just about as well as this other team. Actually, no, that's an insult to them. He's with the Hawks this year. He
Okay.
was involved
I was going to
in
say
a trade. He was
my
involved
next
in a
guess
trade
was
with the
gonna.
Pelicans.
Okay.
He
I
did
didn't
play for
realize he was.
Portland, though.
He did.
You were
I was going to
correct.
say.
Yeah, you were
I was
correct
going
to
to
think
guess
that.
back to Cleveland because I know he played at least there a stint. It's amazing how
All
these
right.
guys bounce around. I need to know or be their real estate agent and get that listing.
Let's see. How about let me make a quick verification on this one before I eat my words here. All right. Where in the world is Joe Ingles? I feel like that's a good one for you.
Well, I know that one. He's with Minnesota.
Nice. Okay.
I know the Timberwolves for the most part.
I thought maybe I can get you on that one.
I feel like that we'll put that segment at the end that I have, and without research, guessing all of the roster of the Timberwolves. I probably can get 2/3.
All right, I will give you. How many times do you want to do this segment? I can give you one more. I can give you a couple
Give me
more.
2 more. Give me 2 more.
All right. This is a guy that we talked about over the summer because of the Olympics. Where in the world is Daniel Tice? We already mentioned this team, by the way. But
Today?
yeah, just like a few minutes ago, maybe less. Since we've been doing this segment.
The Hawks?
Just to help you narrow it down. No, he's with the
I
New
was gonna
Orleans
say-
Pelicans, but we mentioned them in the
okay.
same sentence. So
Okay. My guess would have been the Grizz, so I was off either way. Last one. I'm
all right,
terrible.
I'll give you one more. Where in the world is Bojan Bogdanovic? He was involved in a very big trade early this year, or early in the offseason.
I feel like he was with the Jazz at some point, and I want to say that's where he is now, but I feel like that's completely wrong. That's my guess.
No, new
the
places,
Jazz.
new place, the Jazz. Okay.
So he was there.
No, he was. You know what's there?
No,
It
let
was
me
a
guess.
very big trade. I think we probably talked about it in the first episode. That's when it was a big trade, though.
You make me go back and listen.
Yeah, we're gonna by the magic of editing, he's gonna come back with the answer. Yeah.
I don't remember. I couldn't find it.
He was traded. You went through the whole log back as fast. No, he was traded to the Nets from the Knicks when they got Mikal Bridges.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna cut you loose after that. Since you're over what? That was over 4 or 5.
I got one.
Sorry,
I got
one. You got one.
You got me Joe Ingles, 1 out of like 6. All right. That's fast break news. Let's take a quick timeout and come back with Swish and Tell.
Swish and Tell, where we talk to people in basketball or go to basketball events. Swish and Tell.
our main story is the Karl-Anthony Towns trade to the New York Knicks. It was pretty surprising, I think, for a lot of us. It came very unexpected. I think to a lot of the Minnesota insiders and the New York insiders, nobody really realized it was on the table until a few hours before it happened. And yeah, it was shocking as a Timberwolves fan. To me, I'm happy with the trade. I think it's something that I think is going to make the team better. I've watched a lot of people go back and forth on it. So it's definitely something that I am it's definitely going to be a talking point that we're going to keep looking back and keeping an eye on both teams and seeing how things progress. Obviously, Karl-Anthony Towns is going back and playing with Tibbs before. The run didn't go as great just because of that was the whole Jimmy Butler locker room practice session meltdown, whatnot. But I think he's grown from that. Obviously, that was 6-7 years ago, almost, it feels like. Probably not that long ago. So, but he's grown, gone to a Western Conference final without Jimmy. So I think there's definitely potential for him. I think he's probably going to be needed a little less in New York, like less dependent on as far as points and whatnot. So, but yeah, you've got notes galore here, and I'm sorry I'm hogging the mic from you because I know you're just chomping at the bit to get at this. So I will let you get into the nuts and bolts of this trade, and then we can kind of go from there.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, we can certainly toss the ball back and forth. But here, just to take a pause, we will review the trade real fast.
Yes,
not that y'all can't just look it up, but just to go over the terms. Leading off with the Timberwolves, they get Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, Keita Bates-Diop, and then a protected first-round pick that comes from Detroit. Pretty heavily protected, top 13 in this upcoming draft. Then it drops to top 11 protected in 2026, and then top 9 in 2027. And if it doesn't convey then it goes to a second rounder in 2028. So not a bad pick to collect, I would say. I feel like with y'all know my opinions on Detroit's trajectory. I feel like there's a good chance it could become a first rounder ultimately. And then the Timberwolves certainly are looking to scrape up some first rounders after the Gobert trade and the Dillingham trade for that matter. And who knows, maybe they'll use it, maybe they'll trade it off. But after that, the Knicks get Karl-Anthony Towns. And then they also got James Nagy, the draft rights to James Nagy from Charlotte, who was the third team that had to be involved in this trade in order to make it work. And as I mentioned, that team was Charlotte, the Hornets. They got 3 second-round picks, one of them 2025 from the Timberwolves, 2026 and 31 from the Knicks. They got the sign-in trades from New York of all minimum, $1 over the minimum signings of Daquan Jeffries, Charlie Brown, and Dwayne Johnson Jr. These are all guys that the Knicks signed late in the season last year, I believe. I don't know. These are players that were essentially signed and traded to make the money work, to make it so that neither the Knicks nor the Timberwolves had more more outgoing salary than incoming. The reverse, because especially with the Knicks, they were hard capped to the second apron after the sign-in trades that they had to do in the Mikal Bridges deal. So,
well, the Wolves, I think, are even higher. Aren't they on like the second apron of their?
Yeah. So
they're like 50 million over what the Knicks are, and the Knicks are pressed up against it.
Yeah. So I do think overall it was a good trade all around. I think it's one of those trades that, like you said, has a lot of mixed opinions on the matter. It is absolutely fascinating trade. The way that they had to play by the new rules to get this thing done. And I guess kudos to the Hornets for being a team who says, yeah, we'll take we'll take some of the scraps off your plate in order to make this happen. Especially since, that's not always an option. That's not always an option. There's not too many teams who are there to do that for you. So with that, from the Timberwolves perspective, one thing that they did right off the bat was they got off the Karl-Anthony Towns contract extension, the max extension that goes into effect this year and for the next 4 years. It's a 4-year, $220 million contract. We can go through the years and the ascending totals, but this guy is becoming this year anyway a top 10 player, top 10 paid player in the NBA. And I feel like with the Timberwolves situation, they were trying to make the Twin Towers work. I think it was, as much as they were able to shut down, the former NBA champions in the second round of the playoffs, and just had a fantastic run. Not to mention the way that they just made quick work of the Suns, but I still felt like it was a little bit forced. It was possible just because Cat is a floor spreader, but
there you go.
But at any rate, I do feel like it's going to be a lot better bringing in a natural four with Julius Randle, who's coming in at a much better value. Granted, they had to take on the DiVincenzo contract as well. So the total money is going to be there. There's still going to be an expensive team this year. But the good thing is that, Randle has essentially an expiring contract, depending on how you want to look at it this year or next year, if he takes that player option, which, he probably will, would be my guess. But yeah, we can jump into that a little bit. I almost feel like this trade has so many details to it. It's tough to get it all concisely. So you almost have to go player by player. But Julius Randle coming onto the Knicks, onto the Timberwolves. Some people are worried that his fit's going to be a little bit clunky next to Gobert's, but it's important to remember that he's essentially only played next to a center who plays down low. So that's not really going to be much of a difference for him. And the Timberwolves were desperate for a second option offensive player, a second option playmaker, and Randle's that guy. He's a guy who puts a lot of pressure on the basket. He's a good downhill scorer, and then he can attack in the mid range as well. His shooting's not ideal. If you look at like his catch and shoot threes, I think it's like just below league average. He's got kind of a clunky shot form, but also don't really consider him a non-shooter. So that's kind of like the big difference between where he's lacking with Cat. But I do feel that he is going to bring in a lot more pace to this team. He's a much better fast break player, at least getting to the hoop. Cat, he was good at trailing and hitting those threes on fast breaks, but I do feel like this team is gonna fit more naturally into a higher tempo, higher pace team with him on the floor. That said, I do think that honestly, it's so hard not to think of DiVincenzo as like the true player who was traded to the Timberwolves in this one, just because he is on a brilliant contract. I was kind of downplayed initially, but I believe he is 4 years, $46.8 million.
11.9 hit next year.
Yeah, and for a guy who just came off a season where he was third overall in three-pointers made, one behind Luka Doncic, before being a distant second behind Steph Curry, who, this guy was one good game and Luka was one bad game away from being the second highest three-point scorer in the NBA this past season, and on a great clip, 40.1%, 40.7% on catch and shoot threes. Which is kind of his ideal role. It is a little crazy that 240 of those threes, 240 of the 283 rather, were all catch and shoots. So that is kind of a crazy stat. But I think he's going to be able to slide into that role very easily on the Timberwolves.
It's exactly what I feel the flow of the offense needed. I think that's been the biggest detractor to the trade that a lot of critics are kind of harping on, is that you just traded one of the best 3-point shooters in Cat, because I think his percentage was up there as well. But the fact, and a lot of that is they're saying he's being replaced with Randle, when it's like, no, I think that shooting is being replaced by DiVincenzo, and
And
kind of
then
that,
some.
yeah, and the inside play is going to be brought by Randle. And to me, the key to this whole thing has been to open up Anthony Edwards. He obviously, the Timberwolves see he is a star. And obviously I've been preaching that on here, is just, you can see it when he plays with the best players in the NBA, that he's one of the best players on the floor. Obviously he's not LeBron and he's not Steph or KD, but after that, I think it's, to me, Ant kind of jumped out just because his ability to get his shot and be able to do what he wanted. And obviously that's going to transfer over to this NBA season. And I think having those pieces around to kind of help have him be able to kick out to somebody in the corner that can shoot a three. I think also in all of this that goes unsaid is that this allows the Timberwolves to not have Naz Reid kind of hidden down the bench. He can have a much more dominant role. To me, it's like, I almost feel like he should be starting instead of Gobert. Obviously, we spent so much on him and he's defensive player of the year, but to me, I would love to see much more Naz Reid with this unit. Like you said, his ability to run the floor, his ability to hit threes, and kind of be another role person that can fit that kind of perimeter. When you have somebody like Randle who's going to be in the lane, you have Ant who's going to be collapsing defenses and getting into the lane. You're going to need wings and people to kick out to. And so, and obviously Dillingham had a great first game and was lighting it up from 3 too. So there is a lot of talent here for the Timberwolves. And yeah, to me, I think it was a good trade in order for the development of this team to move forward. I think kind of one of the biggest knocks that people always have against Cat is he has a little bit of that LeBron in him, of kind of whining and kind of overplaying like certain things that you're just like, come on, move on. Like, stop bugging the ref about this. Like, you're not going to get this call from three plays ago. Like, why are you still harping on this? So there are a few of those little nitpicky things. I think the Knicks are getting obviously a great player. I think he's going to help fit what they're looking for. I'm to me, like, the biggest thing, I think Julius Randle is going to have one of the best years, because he's either had to deal with the LA or the New York media kind of nitpicking at him. Yes, Minneapolis media is there. I'm sure he'll have some sort of complaints, but it's not the same. Like, the vibe, he's already talked about, like, the vibe in Minnesota fits him. I think just the city, I think it's going to bring out a different player in him that I don't think a lot of, just, it's that Sam Darnold effect. It's that Minnesota love, I think, is going to kind of bring out the best player in him. And so that's why I'm very excited to see what he's able to do, much less DiVincenzo being that 3-point threat that I feel like we've been looking for and hoping for. So yeah, I'm excited as a Wolves fan.
It's going to be really fun to see how they make this work. You do kind of worry about it being a little bit clunky between Randle and Anthony Edwards. A couple of downhill scorers.
Yeah.
Especially with not that Randle didn't play next to that previously, but without Ant being more of a natural point guard. They still have their floor orchestrator out there. One thing, they certainly had tons of depth. I actually want to touch more on that in a little bit, just because I want to draw out real quick just how profound the 3-point difference is. Karl-Anthony Towns is, in almost comedic meme fashion, is, always gets brought up about how he's touted himself as the greatest, shooting big man of all time. Just to put it in perspective, and certainly injuries play a part in this as well, with the kind of volume that he was able to get up in these seasons. But Karl-Anthony Towns has never broken the 150 3-pointers made mark in his career in a season. So, they're automatically bringing in a guy who hit over in a few more games, rather, granted, but over twice as many threes last year as Karl-Anthony Towns. So for those who are worried about losing the shooting, your sixth man, your second unit is going to look absolutely fantastic out there. And
I'm cutting this and sending it to people. Like, there you go. Like, because that's all I've heard is like, oh, you're losing so much 3-point. It's like, yeah, no, thank you for bringing the stats, Bobby, for dropping the mic and dropping the bombs on people.
Yeah, and I think one of the big themes of this trade is that we thought of the Knicks who were having some issues filling their center position, which I mean they did pretty well. Let's be honest, they did that really well for a team who's shooting for the stars right now. But in order to make this trade happen, I bet they didn't want DiVincenzo going out in it, and as a result, now the 1 through 4 depth that we thought of the Knicks having, Timberwolves kind of stole that from them in a way. So. Yeah, I mean, you guys are going to be. I say that like you play for the team, but as a fan of the Timberwolves, you certainly added more backcourt depth, which was much needed because otherwise Dillingham's role was going to have to be a pretty big one. And I'm not saying that he's not going to play. I'm not saying that he's not going to get good minutes or show us some things. Make a at least like all rookie team case for himself. I don't think he's going to be able to get enough minutes to make all like rookie of the year or anything like that. But yeah, it certainly adds
the bench. He's obviously showing he's a spark off the bench, energy. To me, it's if there's, like you said, if there's another downhill scorer when Ant comes off the floor, or to me, it's Randle might be a little more ball dominant down in the block. So yeah, to me, I think it's a great fit for him to come up. He's got great veterans. I think that's the thing. I'm very glad that having Connolly and DiVincenzo in the backcourt, to me, that's you have quality veterans that are there to kind of show Dillingham like kind of the ropes, and then obviously you still have some younger guys too that are.
And it takes the heat off Connolly, I think. Big time. It takes the heat off Connolly. And as you mentioned, investing in their best player, investing in the player that they hit on. The way the NBA works, I get why Karl-Anthony Towns has that max level contract. I mean, he certainly met the criteria as a max level player. Even though we think of a lot of the things that are lacking in his game, how he's kind of a weird fit on most teams. But if I mean, they made the move that they had to make, and I think that they got pretty decent value for him, as we mentioned.
And it was the right.
Yeah, I mean, there's no, it's okay, I'm trying to make a lot of points as fast as possible, so feel free to cut me off at any point. There is a world, 3 years from now where there's no Mike Conley, no Rudy Gobert, and no Julius Randle on this team, and guess who's still going to be there? Anthony Edwards, Dante DiVincenzo, Rob Dillingham. I mean, they've kind of chosen like this is like we have a great team and we're going to keep that going. So we're bringing in, good veterans to help round out our team, and they're obviously willing to spend right now. They did not get themselves out of the. We'll see if they do anything savvy, but they did not get themselves out of the highest tier here.
You have to move Gobert in order to do anything to get close.
Or find yourself getting off of like a Conley contract or the aforementioned Naz Reid, which I know wouldn't be a fan favorite. If anything, I think they would want to run with him moving forward. So I feel like they have their young core and just keep building around this now for many years to come. And getting off the Towns contract over the next 4 years, it got him out of a little bit of a bind. And that's not to say that Cat is not a phenomenal player, because he is, but it wasn't the ideal fit for that situation.
Oh yeah, no, and to me, I'm big fan of his. I think obviously coming out of Kentucky, I was a fan of his. Being the number 1 pick, I thought it was the right pick. He's at his ups and downs. You get, as a Wolves fan, at any time you get caught on social media and you see all the tribute stuff and get choked up. It's like the guy had a great career, at least in Minnesota. It's not KG, but I think he's top 3 big man to play in Minnesota, and like seeing the pictures with him and Kevin Garnett, him and D Rose, like there's so many iconic Wolves players that he's been around and with over the last, was it 9-10 seasons? So yeah, it's sad to see him go, but I think it's time. I think he's kind of maybe from New York or was around there, so kind of a homecoming.
Yeah, I think he's a
Uh,
New Jersey guy.
yeah, so in a ways he's closer to home, so I think that's good for him. Obviously, I hope that works well. I would be worried about the New York media on him. I think he's not soft, but I feel he has a little Kevin Durant where he needs to kind of fire back. But he's a lot of the stories that you're seeing coming out of Minnesota. The guy's just a nice kid. Like he went to one of the writers' kids' soccer game after the trade was even announced, and talked to all the kids and stuff. So yeah, the guy loved Minnesota. I think he was truly disappointed that he had to leave. I think he wanted to be a Wolf for life, but obviously this is a business. So yeah, I don't know if it was a photo moment or if it was actually like, and I get the fact that if you want to go get those shots up at him at 3:11 in the morning, taking like free throws at the Timberwolves facility just to like get those last moments as a Wolf. Like I get it, and that's cool. And then to see today the highlights of him hitting his first Knicks shot, getting the 3-pointer, probably Steph Curry range. So no, it's great to see that he's moved on and ready. And obviously I've seen DiVincenzo and Randall had a game in a jersey, and so yeah, it's already begun. It's already happened. We're already moving forward. And so yeah, I'm looking at this salary. I don't know where you're going to get rid of it. Like I said, it's only Gobert, like with his $46 million cap hit, and then everybody else is young or you just traded for, so you're not really going to move on. So we'll see. It's like you said, if they do something savvy to figure out that cap hit, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well,
We'll keep you guys updated.
yeah. Well, I mean, with that, we've sort of been breezing by the Karl-Anthony Towns portion of it, coming over to the Knicks side of things. I do feel like he slides into a great role here. He doesn't, as you alluded to, he doesn't have to fill big shoes. I mean, offensively, certainly, there will be expectations there, but he playing for a team. Certainly, he'll have to be active on defense, and I think he's going to have to. I think he's going to have to maintain or up his rebounding numbers in order to hang with these guys. But you don't expect him to be defensive player of the year. And anybody who says that, I think is crazy. I don't think that. I think with the
Hasn't
wings,
watched him play.
Yeah, I think with the wing defense that this team has created for themselves over the past couple of years, it certainly takes the heat off of him a little bit, and he can continue to be the greatest shooting big man of all time for this squad. I think the big thing here is, especially looking out east, he was kind of a surprise fit, but then when you look into it a little bit further, I mean, there is an element of brilliance to this, because I feel like the point of Karl-Anthony Towns on the squad is to take the legs of Kristaps Porzingis out of the paint, to take the legs of Joel Embiid out of the paint. I think certainly teams are going to try to hide maybe some like their small ball power forward types on him. But I mean, he's going to have to potentially drag one of Giannis or Brook Lopez out of the paint. So when you think about the top of the East, what their biggest competition is going to be, it starts to look like a great move, because someone's going to have to play on him. I mean, he may get more open looks with the Knicks than he ever did with the Timberwolves. So I was raving about how DiVincenzo's total 3-point numbers just completely um, power over cats. But I mean, subject to change, right? That might be all they want him to do, honestly. But no. I mean, all kidding aside, I do think the role he's going to be able to slide into, it works very, very well for him. Um, you know, I do think that it'll be great for Mitchell Robinson to come back slowly from injury, as we expect him to sometime over the winter. He doesn't have to be the starting five. He's certainly more of a backup type center anyway. But I think having him as a backup in the way that he plays a different style than Karl-Anthony Towns, is more of a traditional rim running, rim protecting type center who is known for his offensive rebounding. If I'm not mistaken, I think he has like the highest efficiency of offensive rebounding in recent NBA years, which is absolutely nuts. So yeah, I mean, once he's able to get in there, I think that's going to be great for the Knicks as well with their second unit. But I think for the Knicks, that's the biggest issue there is their second unit is now looking suddenly quite thin. When you get past what I think is the most likely starting lineup of Karl-Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, you're looking at, like I said, Mitchell Robinson, Precious Achiuwa, and then we're sliding into the Miles McBride, Jericho Sims, Landry Shamet, just some names who, I mean, Miles McBride, he did look pretty great last year, but especially in the playoffs. But
they're not names you fall in love with.
No, exactly. Yeah, not guys who you think, oh yeah, this is definitely going to be like a sturdy seventh or eighth guy on a championship run team, right? So
yeah.
It does get a little bit rocky after that, and on top of it, the Knicks really have lost all their flexibility at this point. I mean, certainly kudos to them, just because over the past couple of years, they've turned their team into, well, they've acquired Jalen Brunson and then got him to sign a very team-friendly deal, which is going to help maximize their future. Obviously, over this offseason, they acquired Mikal Bridges last year before the trade deadline, OG Anunoby, and then now they have their monster superstar, if you want to call him that, center with Karl-Anthony Towns. Their big five is one of the scariest, if not the scariest in the NBA. I think really only rivaled at this point by the Celtics. But yeah, it just they're unfortunately they're one of those teams, and you can say this about a lot of teams, but I think it would hold true for anyone on the starting lineup. They're one bad injury away from not reaching their ceiling as a team. So that's kind of where things get a little bit concerning for me.
I was to say, way to jump in my brain. I was just about to say, I think that's, to me, the one thing that I'm not like thankful to get off of the contract as well, but it's Towns has a history of injuries. Last year, it looks like he missed 20 games. Before that, the year before that only played 29. The year before that, he missed 15. 30 the year before that, 50 the year before that. So he misses games consistently, and he's pricey. So to get out of that contract with his injury history, he's going into a season where he's going to be 29. I think in November is when he turns 29, I want to say. So he's not a young pup anymore. Obviously, my adage from way back when, once you hit 27, it's kind of downhill after that for us average folk. Obviously, he's a high performance athlete. But I still think there's a solid chance. Like you said, this is a roster that's very thin. I feel like Brunson may have been injured the last couple of years as well. So, like you said, there is some worry, I think, about this team's depth. Obviously, Tibbs will get. He'll probably call up or trade for Taj Gibson somehow, and if he's alive, and
he's definitely going to squeeze every last drop out of.
Oh yeah,
out of that lemon.
Maybe resurrect Joakim Noah possibly. So
I am excited to see the Tibbs interactions this year. Yeah, Tibbs and I both went up to the country to buy saddles together because. As somebody who's not even a New York fan, one thing we have in common is we're just going to be riding this team all year long. I'm on the Knicks bandwagon, but boy, I'm not gonna take it easy on them.
Here's a question. Which bandwagons are you on? I think that's a whole separate one because I need to have a full list to write down how many bandwagons you're going to be on this year.
Oof. I think I've lost track of the list at this point. It's like 2 days.
Yeah. We'll see.
But there's quite a few. You should see, every year I will update the teams I like or follow.
Your ESPN favorites, yeah.
My ESPN favorites, and I turn off notifications for all of them just because my phone would just never stop ringing. But I have favorited a majority of the teams in the league.
I've got 2.
So essentially, almost
every
every game will show up as like on like the front of like scores that I need to see,
and most of them twice.
Yeah, well, no, ESPN's good about that, but yeah, there's a lot of games that will show up for me just because. I mean, it could just be as simple as like this one player. I want to see how they're doing, and so I want to see that box score every single time.
That's all right. That's why we're doing
this. Yeah, that's just my insanity. But I do think it is interesting. Speaking of the money for the Knicks, who were able to find themselves like a few $100,000 below the second apron because they had to be. But it's just wild how they got there, especially with this roster that they have. But they sort of break the natural hierarchy of players and contracts and are doing it very publicly. The best player on the team is not the highest paid player, and he made that choice. We keep calling it like such a team friendly contract. It's one of the best contracts in the league now. In order to make sure that they could take on a big contract with OG Anunoby and obviously the max deal with Cat and still hopefully be able to come to terms with Mikal Bridges. So it is kind of cool how, the numbers exist. They're there, they're big, they're scary, but the way that they apply to each player in order to make this whole thing work, it is kind of cool how everybody's just sort of like bought in. I'm excited. I'm very excited to see how this team actually plays together. I think that they are going to be a force. I wouldn't be surprised if they're the ones that make the big upset in the East. Not that big of an upset, rather. That's what I'm saying.
Excellent. I've got nothing more on the matter. I think I like I said, I'm excited to get this rolling and see what this new look Timberwolves team looks like. And we will find out for sure.
Yeah. So you can certainly tune in for some preseason action, and if you want to see those starting lineups play for about 6 minutes total, or you could just be a normal person and wait for the regular season to start and actually see it matter. So it'll be fun. It's going to be very, very fun.
Yes, indeed.
This next segment, we're going to call it Empty Calories, just because these are absolute nonsense questions. You're not really going to get any nutrition out of this, but fun to talk about and could inspire hours and hours of conversation. So I was going to kick it off, and I was gonna touch back on a topic that we had mentioned at the top of the episode, bringing back up Derrick Rose. Do you think that Derrick Rose is going to be a Hall of Famer?
Ooh, that's a great question. If I knew the specifics of the criteria to get in,
that's the thing. I don't think that there is. I think it's all pretty subjective.
I believe it's a full body of work. Like it is his collegiate and professional career together. And granted, he only had 1 year at Memphis, and I think they barely made a run in the tournament. Actually, I'd have to double check that, but I feel like I'm going to go out on the limb and say no. I don't think he has enough quality years. Granted, he played 17. What did I have down here? 17 seasons. And that's the thing, like career high in points was 50 with the Wolves. Rebounds 12, assists 17, steals 6, blocks 3, only had 1 triple-double. I feel like there needs to be a full body of work, and I don't feel he has. I think he has a name, and he was so great to watch that he might get in just because of that. But I feel off of statistics and seasons, I would say no, sadly. What would you say?
Well, I do think it's a tough question to answer, which is why I like to ask it. But I feel like it provokes a little thought exercise. So name me an NBA MVP that's not a Hall of Famer or will be a Hall of Famer.
True. Yeah.
Doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. Part 2 of this. And you can think about it a couple different ways. I try not to think about it, as you mentioned, as a body of work, but who's the better basketball player, Derrick Rose or Russell Westbrook?
See, that's in my head. I immediately went there when you mentioned it before, just because I feel like Westbrook's an MVP that I don't. He's the same way. He's on the edge. Like the iconic triple double stuff that year is what I feel will probably put him over the edge, just because that feat in itself is something that hadn't been done in so long. I don't feel like Rose has any of those kind of like iconic. He has that iconic season, but yeah, that's a great question just for either of them, because
I think of Russell Westbrook as a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, he's not everybody's favorite player, and there's a lot of recency bias in it. I mean, if he was still had the letters OKC on his jersey right now, and we were back in that world, we would say this guy's amazing. He was never an efficient scorer. For a very ball dominant guy, he's always had like a high assist to turnover ratio, even if he could get 1,000 assists, every night. But I mean, in a vacuum, especially at their respective age, when Derrick Rose, was able to show us what he had, I feel like Derrick Rose is a better individual basketball player than Russell Westbrook, and I would have loved to see what that could have done. I threw down the term speed kills earlier, and Russell Westbrook has sort of defied that, which has been one of the more impressive things about his career, to be honest, to go along with all the triple doubles and such. But yeah, I mean,
it's a great, like you said, thought-provoking question, just because I guess for me it's like I don't know, like I said before, I don't know the criteria, how many. It's recency bias because of what other names are we going to put above him, either one of those players, when that ballot comes out, when in the year that they're going to be voted in. To me, I think yes, they'll get in that respect, but I don't know if there's only 3 or 5 that make it in. If it's something like baseball, where it seems like it's 1 or 2 a year almost get in because of how the criteria is. So do I feel that they should both be in? Do I feel Derrick Rose should be in? Yes, I feel like he should be in, just because you should have people in the Basketball Hall of Fame who were iconic legends, had legendary seasons, and just made people love basketball more, I think. And he was definitely one of those players. So I feel he should be in. I'm not a voter. I don't know the criteria, which maybe that's something I need to do my research on and find out what exactly.
Ditto. Because right now I'm saying it's mostly subjective, but I'm sure there's some criteria. I mean, I'm assuming, just by I'm assuming if there's any criteria, it's probably at least like number of games or seasons played, which he's going to meet. So I think he's going to be eligible. But yeah, it's just going to be a matter of whether or not the voters can all agree on this one.
Yeah.
I think if anything, he would get strung along. It's hard for me to see him
Yeah,
he's such an interesting case because it's hard to compare it to anything else. So
and
I think ultimately it's hard to not say yes to this guy, but yeah,
yeah, and
I don't think he's going
it's
to be like
also
first ballot. We'll see.
it's a popularity contest when it comes down to it, obviously. And in that regard, I think if you put him up against Russell in the same draft class and said one of them's got to go in, I think D Rose is going to go in. Just if it's in a public vote, I think I think people, there's less haters of D Rose that would speak up versus the amount of Westbrook haters for whatever reasons he has. And granted, I've more or less have trolled him on occasion too. So, but I think I just think there, like you said, it's subjective, but yet I think there is obviously some sort of requirements. Do I feel those two should be in? Yes. Do I think it's an automatic, like you said, not first ballot, but I think they should get in at some point.
Yeah, and I think I want to make a quick correction. I realize how assist to turnover ratios work. I think I said high assist to turnover ratio. You guys know what I meant. Subpar assist to turnover ratio with Russell Westbrook. And also, I hate to correct you again here, Ronnie, but Derrick Rose, he in his, and I didn't know this. I had to Google it because I don't follow college basketball as well as I follow the NBA. But in his single season with with Memphis. He did lead them to the most wins in NCAA history, and it looks like they did have an NCAA AA championship game appearance. I don't think they won though, so it sounds like they actually did quite well.
Well, no, I
which
think
could add to his candidacy.
I will have to double check that, but I feel like you said, they had one game, so they had all these wins and then got upset in the tournament. They should have 6 games.
Wait, their first ever ranking and an appearance in the NCAA championship game. So,
okay, never mind. An appearance in the championship game. Sorry, I misheard that. So then, yeah, they had a run. So yeah, no, then I think he should be in. Then yeah, if you make the, yeah, no, enough said. Anyways,
yeah, I mean it's like a 5-year span that voters are voting on essentially, which is weird. Yeah. It's weird because the other stuff is not MVP. I'm sorry, it's not Hall of Fame.
I think that's kind of
Hall of Fame level of play. So
yeah, where I would worry about his candidacy would be just the consistency. Because yeah, Westbrook has that. Like I feel like is still throwing up shots, he'll be 45 getting 12 to 15 a game, I think, just because he's going to be a wily veteran. So all right, this leads me to my question, which
I'm hungry. Give me some bugles. I need some empty calories.
Yeah. So this is not mine. I'm not taking full credit. I found this, and obviously this is sports radio banter. Having talked about Derrick Rose and his injury, I want to give you a blank check to any basketball player. Actually, I could lead this out to any, but I will stick to basketball. Is there any basketball player, which basketball player would you give an injury do-over to and not let them get hurt? I would assume it would be Derrick Rose, but you have lots of different options. Grant Hill, Tracy McGrady. Like there's lots of different people who didn't get to the elite expectations because of their injuries. So is there anybody that you feel like a Greg Oden, whoever it might be out there that you were like, man, I wish they could have been more just because of that injury?
Well, darn, you're stealing all the good ones. I mean, yeah, I mean the easy answer is certainly D Rose. Ooh, what other ones? Oh, sorry for the dead air here. You're really putting me on the spot.
That's all right.
I almost feel
good.
like
No, we'll have a thinking. I'll do like a few moments later.
I mean, I can think about if Curry didn't the year after Durant left, and if Curry didn't break his hand, and which ultimately led to the Warriors having their slump year, before then coming back to make it, a championship run. That was obviously a big deal for them. But yeah, there was a couple years there where, uh, actually, you know what? I would have to change. I would pick the same team, but I'd have to change the answer to Klay Thompson. If Clay didn't start racking up the injuries and resembled prime Clay for a little bit longer, what those teams would have looked like. I think another one. I guess I'll stick more recent, but another one that comes to mind is Jamal Murray. He the Nuggets had a rough go trying to maximize their regular seasons and playoff runs with Jokic, seemingly being the lone horse, the sturdy little engine, big engine, I guess who's just like the Iron Man on that team, amongst other things. If they could have started their run a little bit sooner as well, especially since a lot of people are looking at the Nuggets like they've already let their window slide past them. So I'll stick with Klay Thompson on this one. That's one that you didn't mention that I think we could have got a couple more years out of that team. That would have been really interesting.
No, I agree. I think another one we had mentioned before earlier was Gordon Hayward and
that's a great one
some
too.
Injury at the beginning of the year. I feel there was one. I'm going a little bit farther back, and it's one of those. At least not saying I hoped it, but I'm pretty sure that they were on the cusp of doing something good, or it was the year after they went to the finals. But Kenyon Martin breaking his leg, I think was one of those that kind of changed the game, and just because of how fun he was to watch. It's funny, I came across some of their old highlights with Kerry Kittles and good old bald Richard Jefferson and Kenyon Martin and his angry dunks. Man, that was such a fun team to watch, and they made that run with Jason Kidd to the finals and lost to the Lakers. And I think then I have to double check and verify my stats of when he broke his leg around that time. And it was towards the end of the season, I believe, where it just kind of took the air out of the team. But yeah, that's at least the one in my head that kind of jumps out. It was like, man, there's a few others, obviously, with the Paul George and him breaking his leg with the Olympics and stuff too. So yeah, there's always a few of those where you're just like, man, what could have happened? What they could have done in that year, or how they were kind of trending at that time. I think that's.
Yeah. Speaking of Paul George, granted, I'm good at bringing up guys who've already won rings and multiple rings at that, but name any of the Lakers or the Clippers Kawhi injuries, all those playoff runs that were just spoiled by Kawhi never being able to stay healthy throughout the runs through the playoffs. I think -1. And yeah, so many people going into the season with those Clippers teams just thought over and over again, all right, I'm picking the Clippers because it seemed like on paper, like these guys, they're like the prototypical NBA team. It's absolutely perfect. But yeah, he's another guy who's just kind of had a very peculiar career in how much he has been able to accomplish. Just people unanimously already deciding that, he's one of the greatest of all time, but having to have done it in such a small amount of availability. If you look at his total numbers for his career, going down your points, rebounds, assists, what have you, it's like that. It just pales in comparison to any of the other guys that we think about on his level who are on the other side of 30, who's been doing this for a while and who have won 2 Finals MVPs and multiple Defensive Player of the Year awards. Like if you were to just hear those things and then say, all right, guess where this guy ranks on like the all-time numbers, and he's nowhere even close because he just can't rack up the games to do it. So that's another strange one. Yeah. But career fulfilled. So and I guess you can say thing about Steph and Clay. Career is already fulfilled. So I don't know that necessarily fits as well as Kenyon Martin. That's a good one. That's a very good one.
All right. That was empty calories. Hopefully that filled you up. All right. Outro and an intro. And then we're go to bed.
Yeah, I guess so.
I gotta go get the dog out of her room. Well, all right, that's going to wrap it up for us here on the Bucket Bros. The season is upon us. We're going to try to get these out as quickly as we can, but life happens, so we will make sure that we keep these coming out for you. I think we'll probably try to at least get one more in before the season starts. I think it's October 8th. I think we've got, what is that? Do my math backwards, like
It's a couple weeks or so.
2 weeks.
Yeah,
2 weeks away, I think, from tips.
2 or 3 weeks. Wow, that's crazy. That's wild.
Yeah.
The dog days of summer are almost over, folks.
Yeah, it is. It is 2 weeks from today is the opening tip. So yeah, we will make sure that we will get another episode in just to fulfill your basketball appetites, and we will go from there. We are excited for the NBA season. Yes, indeed.
Well, thanks for listening, folks. Thanks for being our best fans. All of you are our biggest and best fans. So appreciate you. Keep coming back, and we'll keep filling up your brains with nonsense.
We appreciate it. This has been the Bucket Bros. Hit him with that step back.
Woo!